So hey there friends, welcome to this Tuesday Tidbit episode of SelfKind with me, Erica Webb. Today we're going to keep talking about this concept of joyful rebellion and talk about how it ties in with our desire to please other people. So how are you, my friends? I am going to make this one really short and sweet. It is a continuation of last week's episode about joyful rebellion. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, go on back to it so that you have a sense of what it is we're talking about, because I really wanted to talk about the links with people pleasing in terms of why joyful rebellion can feel really hard and also why it's so needed. So this kind of add-on episode, I guess, essentially is what it is, came about because I was watching a reel or something like that on Facebook or Instagram somewhere. And in that reel, somebody was just kind of streaming a class that they were doing, not as a teacher, but as a student. And in the background, you could hear the teacher saying something along the lines of, if you need to, put your hands here to support you, but ideally, you'll do it without that. And it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, here's where we get ourselves in a bit of a little sticky situation when we are trying to keep other people happy. I think this is why so many of us are willing to do things in movement classes, in workplaces, in homes, in all sorts of places that we really don't feel align with our greatest good, because we are very much wanting to keep other people happy, do the right thing. And when I heard that sort of instruction in this class, I thought, that is part of the problem. Now, I've been part of the problem. I'm not, wanting to sort of throw shade at anyone and be the kind of person who shames another practitioner. That's 100% not my style. But recognizing that the impact of our words is not insignificant, right? It's not benign, the way that we choose to speak and the way that we choose to speak to ourselves and the way that we choose to give instruction and receive instruction. It's not benign. It does have an impact. And so when we hear as a student on the mat, you could do it this way if you needed to, but it's not as good. So ideally you won't. We are going to do things that perhaps don't feel as good and supportive and aligned with our needs as we might if we really and truly felt like we had permission to be guided by our own needs. Now, this isn't to say that we don't have room in our lives for challenge, right? It might be a wonderful invitation to be like, could you try it without? What happens? How does it feel? Is it the kind of challenge that feels supportive and exciting and interesting? Or does it actually just feel like you are kind of being let down or letting yourself down or not providing yourself with the kind of support or not taking the kind of support or not being provided with the kind of support that would allow you to feel supported in the thing that you're doing? And so when we talked about this idea of joyful rebellion in last week's episode, it was this idea of recognizing that our brain does this thing where it says, well, obviously there's a better choice or a more desirable choice or the choice that that other person wants me to make. And then going, you know what? I don't have to be pulled around like a puppet on my strings just to satisfy that what is ultimately a false kind of sense of better or worse. And we do it with joy, right? We lie down when, the option is given to rest or to keep going with something. We notice that, oh, my brain's telling me that maybe the better choice is to keep going, but I'm going to lie down. Or we're not even given a choice and we still take it, right? So joyful rebellion comes in this form of recognizing the impact that this kind of hierarchical thinking has, but also the language that other people are using and how that might influence our assessment of what it is that we want and need. Because it's not always that clear cut. And so I just wanted to point that out. It was one of those things where I heard it, I quickly wrote a note into my phone because I was like, we say these things as teachers and as people without really realizing the impact that it can have on others. And it's not to say that and I realize that I'm not always necessarily talking to fellow teachers. So I really want you to hear this, I guess, as a consumer of things, right? This is how I'm looking at it as well. And I think about it as in terms of being a teacher and how that impacts my choice of words. Sometimes I choose words that I wish I hadn't chosen, right, after the fact. So sometimes we just say things as well and we're like, oh, that was probably not my best choice. I'll say something different next time. And so I'm certainly, like I said, not throwing shade on this teacher. Perhaps it's the only time she's ever said that. Possibly not though. But as you hear it, right, as a consumer, as a student, as a learner, as a participant in something, recognizing the impact that will have on what you choose to do with your body, your resources, and making a joyful, potentially rebellious decision in the direction of what it is that you actually want. All right, that's it. Short and sweet. I will be back on Thursday with more. I'll see you then.